The Tale of Captain Valcour and the Salamandre. A noble captain's fall. In the year 1718, Captain Etienne Valcour, a man of noble blood from the court of King Louis XV, commanded the Salamandre, a sleek frigate of the French Royal Navy. Born in 1685 to a wealthy family in Bordeaux, Valcour was a disciplined officer, his dark hair always neatly tied, his uniform pristine, and his saber polished to a mirror's sheen. Stationed in the Caribbean, he patrolled the waters around Martinique. Tasked with protecting French merchant vessels from Spanish raiders and rogue privateers, his crew admired his fairness, though some whispered he was too rigid, too bound by honor. On a balmy evening in June 1719, while pursuing a Spanish galleon off the coast of Saint-Domingue, the Salamandre overtook the Santa Isabella. The galleon surrendered after a brief skirmish, and Valcour's men discovered a treasure beyond imagination. Chests of gold doubloons, emeralds the size of quail eggs, and a golden Aztec idol encrusted with sapphires, looted from the New World. The haul was worth a king's ransom, enough to buy a fleet or topple a small nation. But something shifted in Valcour that night. Staring at the glittering hoard in the Salamandre's hold, he saw not duty, but freedom. The court's endless intrigues, the king's distant commands, the meager pay for risking his life, it all soured in his mind. By dawn, he made his choice. He rallied his crew, declared himself a pirate, and renamed the Salamandre a free vessel. Most cheered, lured by the promise of riches. Others, loyal to the crown, were quietly locked below deck and later set adrift in a longboat. Life among the vermin. Valcour's transition to piracy was not seamless. His noble upbringing clashed with the rough men he now led. Hardened sailors, escaped slaves, and cutthroats like his first mate, Jean Le Corbeau Dubois, a wiry Breton with a scar across his throat. The crew dubbed themselves the Sons of the Salamandre, and for 2 years they terrorized the Caribbean, raiding Spanish and British ships from Tortuga to the Bahamas. Valcour, now Captain Loup de Mer, Seawolf, learned to wield fear as deftly as his saber, though he forbade wanton cruelty, a rule that grated on men like Le Corbeau. The treasure from the Santa Isabella was hidden on a remote islet near the Ile de la Petite Antille. Marked only by a crude map, Valcour kept locked in his cabin. He shared its location with no one, not even Le Corbeau, sowing seeds of distrust. By late 1721, the crew's unity frayed. Le Corbeau whispered of betrayal, claiming Valcour hoarded the treasure for himself. Greed festered like rot. Mutiny and exile. On a moonless night in January 1722, as the Salamandre anchored off a desolate quay near the Turks and Caicos, Le Corbeau led a mutiny. In a bloody brawl, Valcour and 5 loyal men, navigator Pierre Moreau, carpenter Antoine Giscard, gunner Thomas Velez, cook Julien Petit-Lefebvre, and young cabin boy Michel were overpowered. Le Corbeau spared Valcour's life, mocking his noble blood, and marooned them on the quay with a pistol, a single shot, and a cask of water. The Salamandre sailed off with the treasure map, leaving the 6 men to the mercy of the sea. The quay, barely a mile wide, was a hell of sun and sand. Moreau, a scholarly man, charted the stars to keep their spirits alive. Giscard, ever practical, built a crude shelter from driftwood. Velez taught Michel to fish with a spear, while Petit concocted stews from seaweed and crabs. Valcour, haunted by his fall, spoke little but worked tirelessly, his noble hands blistered. For 5 months they survived, clinging to hope. In June 1722, Giscard and Velez crafted a raft from salvaged timber and rope woven from palm fronds. The 6 set sail, praying for a trade wind to carry them to shipping lanes. After 3 days adrift, they spotted a ship, the Salamandre. As they drew near, the stench of death hit them. The deck was a charnel house. Le Corbeau and the mutineers had turned on each other, likely over the treasure. Bodies littered the planks, some hacked, others bloated by poison. The ship's hull was damaged, taking on water, unfit for a long voyage. The treasure's burial. Valcour's men boarded, salvaging what they could: a chaloupe, a small boat, provisions, and the treasure map, still in Valcour's cabin. The idol and gold were gone, likely hidden by Le Corbeau before the slaughter. Valcour, fearing the curse of greed that destroyed his crew, decided to rebury the treasure. Near a jagged outcrop on a nearby islet, now known as Salt Cay, they dug a pit under a lone palm, marked by a carved stone. Valcour redrew the map, deliberately vague, noting only beneath the sentinel palm where the shadow falls at dusk. They burned the original and set off in the chaloupe, vowing never to speak of the treasure again. The six reached Port Royal in July 1722. Valcour, broken by betrayal, vanished into obscurity, some say to a monastery in France. Moreau became a cartographer in Havana. Guiscard and Velez joined a merchant crew. Petit opened a tavern in Nassau. Michel, barely 15, disappeared into the Caribbean's underbelly. The Salamandra sank off Salt Cay, its wreck lost to time. The map resurfaces. For 3 centuries, the treasure of the Salamandra faded into legend, whispered in taverns from Kingston to Cadiz. The map, passed from Michel to a lover, then to a debtor, drifted through hands, pirates, smugglers, collectors, until it vanished. In January 2025, it reappeared in a dusty Paris antique shop, L'Antiquaire des Ombres, owned by one Madame Claire Duval. The map, tattered and stained, was tucked inside a 17th-century sailor's journal, bought at an estate sale in Martinique. A map's crude lines and cryptic note beneath the sentinel palm where the shadow falls at dusk offered little precision. Experts called it a fraud. Others, intrigued by its age, speculated it pointed to Salt Cay or nearby islets. The journal mentioned Valcour and the Salamandre, lending credence to its authenticity. Madame Duval auctioned it online and it sold for €12,000 to an anonymous bidder, sparking a frenzy among treasure hunters. The hunt begins. Today, July 19, 2025, the chase for Valcour's treasure is just beginning. Blogs and X posts buzz with theories, some claiming the sentinel palm is long gone, others pointing to satellite imagery of Salt Cay's rocky shores. The map's vagueness, lacking coordinates, faded by time, deters all but the boldest. Yet the legend of the Salamandre's hoard, with its Aztec idol and Spanish gold, pulls dreamers to the Caribbean. Who knows, perhaps a keen eye or a stroke of luck will uncover what Captain Valcour hid 3 centuries ago.